I broke up with my girlfriend because she wanted to stay a virgin. Now, she wants to get back together, but had sex with someone else during our breakup. I, a 23-year-old male, met my ex-girlfriend, a 21-year-old female, 3 years ago. We lived on campus at the university in different halls of residence. After a few months, we got together and, for the most part, had a very happy relationship. There was always one issue, though. My ex grew up in a very religious home. Her father is a pastor. She has been open with her family that she does not share their faith. They weren't happy about it, but accepted that she has to make her own choices. Nevertheless, I think some of that religious upbringing was still in her mind. I grew up in a different religion but was never very serious about it, and I'm no longer religious. Our relationship was pretty normal except that she told me early on that she was a virgin and wanted to stay that way until she was married. It wasn't for religious reasons, as I mentioned. She isn't religious, but she was very focused on not disappointing her dad. We did other sexual things, just not intercourse. I never had much luck with girls growing up, and going into the relationship, I was a virgin and still am, at least if you classify being a virgin as never having had intercourse. I was becoming more resentful of the fact that everyone I knew was having normal sexual relationships and we weren't. I couldn't understand why she didn't want to have a full sexual relationship. Of course, I never pressured her about it. I felt that while I was at university and pretty broke, getting married was something for the future. Last year, I was in my last year of university and she was working in her first professional job. Her degree was shorter than mine, so she finished university first. Despite being younger than me, she was talking a lot about all these successful guys she met at work, which did make me feel lesser, as I was still a broke university student. Coupled with her still not wanting a full sexual relationship, it did make me feel more resentful. We had some arguments about it, and after a while, I felt that I should end the relationship as we wanted different things and our lives were on different paths. It was awful. She was crying a lot, and I felt terrible afterward. Anyway, it has been nearly 6 months since we broke up. We haven't been in touch at all for most of that time. I have not been involved with anyone else during that period, as I was 100% focused on finishing my degree. I have finally finished university and am about to start my first professional job. She recently got in touch again and asked to meet up. I was hesitant, but decided we had so much good history that I should hear her out. She told me she's been missing me terribly these past 6 months, that she thinks she wants to get back together, and is open to having a sexual relationship now. I asked her why now. What changed? She looked uncomfortable, and after a little prying, she said she had a short-term fling with one of the older guys at work while we were broken up, which was fine, as she wasn't my girlfriend anymore. She said he persisted until she started having sex with him and ended it with him recently. She was clear that it was consensual, but that the guy was very persistent. I was gutted. I couldn't understand why she'd make me wait all those years, but was fine doing it with someone new she'd only been seeing for a short time. Asked if the reason she was open to having a sexual relationship now was because she wasn't a virgin anymore. She said yes. I asked her to give me some space to process all this. I'm conflicted and would love some advice on this. I have missed her a lot and still have strong feelings for her, but at the same time, it feels like I was strung along for years. It's hard to put my finger on why I don't want to take her back. Logically, everything makes sense for us to get back together. I'd even get to finally have a sexual relationship with her. But I feel awful about this whole thing and don't want to ignore those feelings. Some comments have been very harsh on my ex, and I guess that's not surprising. You don't know her. She's not some evil, manipulative villain at all. I would never have been with anyone like that. She's still the funny, smart, charming, beautiful girl I always knew. Any guy would be lucky to have her, and I would be too if I could handle the baggage here. But I think I probably can't, and a clean break is the way to go. Though she may regret the relationship with the other man, it's not my business, as she was a single woman when we broke up. I wasn't ever expecting to hear from her again. This whole situation is very surprising to me. I'm feeling hurt because this is a solid blow to my ego, and I feel like the lesser man here. I can own that, and it's something for me to work on. Ultimately, I have some hang-ups about sex from this relationship that I need to deal with. A few people have suggested I could benefit from therapy, and I'm going to look into that. I think I need help to process all these emotions from this situation. I would ask her why she was willing to sleep with this guy after such a short relationship, but was not willing to sleep with me after 3 years. I think this is the right question because I don't know why she didn't say. All she mentioned was that the guy was persistent. I'm torn about whether to simply text her that I don't want to rekindle things and leave it all in the past, or whether I should ask more questions about what happened, because this hurts. I don't know if I'm ready to get details of her relationship with the other guy. Sometimes I just feel like I'm stunted in some way. A few comments have said I'm immature, and they're probably right. I know I'm the one who ended the relationship and that she's entitled to do what she wants with anyone else, but it still doesn't make it hurt any less. Maybe it's just best to say goodbye and leave all this in the past. Update, hello again. I appreciate everyone taking the time to comment on my last post. The response was a lot more than I expected, with over 2,000 comments. I'm amazed so many people wanted to share their thoughts about my situation. A minority said to give her a chance and see how it goes, while plenty called me an **** for ending it because I wanted sex in our relationship or for being obsessed with her virginity. Some said I dumped her because she wouldn't put out, and quite a few claimed my breaking up with her made her feel like sex is necessary to keep a guy, which drove her heartbroken into the next guy's bed. There were even a few comments suggesting she might be pregnant. Not that I know of. It's not impossible, but if that happens, it won't be anything to do with me. Some guys suggested I should just leave her, or worse. Seriously, some of you need a hug or a psychologist. No, I would never use her like that. No matter her past, Ellie and I were a loving couple for years, and that counts for something. Even after we broke up, feeling hurt doesn't justify using her, or anyone else for that matter. As for comments that I have some hang-up about taking her virginity, my issue was that we weren't having sex in our relationship, not whether she was a virgin or not. Her being a virgin was her reason for being abstinent, but it wasn't directly an issue for me. If she hadn't been a virgin and still wanted to be abstinent, I would have been in the same situation. For 3 years, Ellie had everything she wanted from our relationship: boyfriend, love, affection, loyalty, support, and a guy who respected her wishes. Meanwhile, there was a big element missing for me, and there was no way to reconcile that. We were either having sex or we weren't. Sex requires both to say yes, and that wasn't going to happen. In hindsight, I should have ended the relationship early on when Ellie first told me she wanted to wait until marriage. When we got together, I was a naive 19-year-old who had never had a girlfriend before, so I kind of went along with things because I really liked her, and we got along so well. I fell in love with her, and then felt stuck in a relationship that wasn't what I wanted. I've learned from this and won't make that mistake in the future. I want to make active, not passive, choices in future relationships and not just go along with things because that's what the other person wants. Our views about sex and our relationship were not compatible, so I ended it rather than waiting any longer, hoping she'd change her mind. It was scary to take that step, and I put it off for way too long because I didn't want to hurt her. But I had to consider myself too. My mistake was waiting so long to reach that point. I regret that, as it caused her more hurt than if I'd ended it early. Many of you say that sex just isn't that important, but for me it is, at least as part of a relationship. You can disagree. That's fine. Some people are okay being in no-sex relationships, no judgment for me, but that's not what I want. Some people took issue with me saying I felt she strung me along. On reflection, that's fair. Ellie was clear about wanting to wait until marriage, and I foolishly stayed too long hoping she'd change her mind. She didn't, and that was my mistake. I strung myself along, really. She never led me on in any way. It hurt to learn that she had sex with an ex-guy relatively quickly after I waited so long, but she is my ex, so that is not my business anymore. She is allowed to change her mind. She can have sex or not with whoever she chooses. I don't get a say in that. My hurt is an emotional response, not a logical one. Logically, I see she did nothing wrong. I'll get over it. It's just my bruised ego, if I'm honest with myself. I feel somehow lesser because she took that step with an ex-guy. I know objectively that isn't true, but I sure feel it. I was not a perfect boyfriend, and I have made mistakes. I have learned from them. I don't regret breaking up with Ellie, and still think it was the right decision for me. Now, some background. Last weekend was the Australia Day long weekend, and I was on a camping trip in the Grampians. For any Aussies reading, it was so nice to be in nature, doing some bush walks with friends and decompressing. It felt good to talk about the Ellie situation with my mates around the campfire. Most of them knew Ellie pretty well from our years together, and they had a range of views, just like the commenters on my post. I even got the usual good-natured ribbing about still being a virgin. One great question a friend asked was whether I would have ever reached out and taken Ellie back if she had never reached out to me first. The answer is no. It became obvious to me, cutting through a lot of the confusion. I realized I was being too passive in this situation and needed to do what I wanted, not just react to what Ellie wanted. By the time I was on the way home, I had decided not to get back together with her. That decision was moot when I got a mobile signal again while driving home. I hadn't had service where we camped, and suddenly a bunch of messages from Ellie came through. She said she was wrong to ask me to get back together, and that she's back with Tim now. She also mentioned that her relationship with Tim is more serious than she told me when we last met. She apologized for misleading me about her and Tim's relationship. If you remember, she called it a fling before asking to meet and talk. I was not happy. So, I just texted back, no, not very mature of me, but I wasn't in the mood to hear more about this. I was surprised and angry that she lied to me, That seemed very out of character for her. She tried calling me, but I didn't want to answer. She sent another text saying that she and Tim had a fight and that I shouldn't have come to her, followed by, "I'm sorry." When I got home, I was an idiot and let my curiosity get the better of me. I looked up Tim online. His real name is uncommon, so it wasn't hard to find him. I found him on LinkedIn, where Ellie is one of his connections. He works at the same firm and is a director, one level below partner. He also has pictures on Instagram, lots of posts about his adventures around the world, various events, and exotic places, along with shots of an expensive-looking car. There were a few photos of him with Ellie, their arms around each other in Singapore last November. I guess that confirms it was serious. He wouldn't have public pictures with her for a casual fling. All that just made me feel bad. No good comes from comparing myself to my ex's successful boyfriend. Ellie is not my girlfriend, and I'm not in competition with Tim, so I won't do that again. My ego's bruised enough already. I've been living a very frugal life my whole time at university, aka poor, so I know I can feel inferior when I see people with wealth. That's another problem for me to sort out. Anyway, all that was on Sunday. On Tuesday evening, Ellie knocked at my door. She said she knew I didn't want to talk to her, but she felt bad about everything and hoped I would let her explain herself, clear the air, and then I never have to see her again, if that's what I wanted. I let her in. I was not happy with recent events, but figured I might at least get a clearer idea of what's going on. It was a long, heavy conversation. Over 4 hours. But here's the gist as I remember it. When we broke up, she was devastated. She said it took a couple of months before she started to feel a bit better. She missed me constantly and wanted to see me the whole time, but when I ended it, we agreed to keep apart and heal. In September, she met Tim at work. He manages a different team, and she doesn't work for him. She said he was very charming and attractive, showing almost immediate interest in her. They got to know each other, and he asked her out. She was worried it was a rebound, but felt so much better getting his attention that she went along with it. After dating for a while, she developed feelings for him, which later led to a sexual relationship. It wasn't a fling. She dated him for a while beforehand. Asked about whether he had pressured her into sex. Last time, she said he was very persistent. She mentioned that she was trying not to upset me. She thought if she gave the impression she was reluctant to have sex with Tim, I wouldn't think as badly of her. So it was a story to try and spare my feelings. I told her it just made me worried she had been assaulted. She looked shocked at that and said no way. She was actually the one who initiated their sexual relationship. I said that although I didn't like that she lied to me, I could understand why. I don't think she did anything wrong in changing her mind about abstinence. Yes, I was hurt when she told me she was having sex, but I have no right to judge her for anything. She's a single adult and it's her life. I don't think badly of her. She burst into tears and said something like, "I thought you must hate me now." I assured her that I didn't. She said she was sad it didn't work for us, but that she never would have dropped her virginity commitment if we had not broken up. After we broke up, she decided that it was a commitment she made to her dad when she was still a kid, and it was messing with the life she wants now. By the time she and Tim got into their relationship, she had already decided she was ready for sex with the right person. I asked about her dad, and she just said he doesn't need to know. Asked about why she asked to get back together. Tim is older. She told me he's 32 and has been at the firm for 10 years. One day at work, one of the women made a snarky comment to Ellie about being another one of Tim's girls. She did some digging, and it turns out Tim has a history. He has dated a long list of women from work, several of them young graduate employees, just like Ellie. The rumor around the office is that Ellie is just the next girl to get used by him. She was horrified and accused him of using her. They argued, and she told him it was over. Soon after that, she came to me. She felt as if we might be able to rekindle things now that she was open to a sexual relationship, but my hesitation and time to calm down made her realize that was a mistake. Over the weekend, Tim asked her to work things out, and she decided to give it a chance. She tried to call me, but it went to voicemail since I was camping, so she sent those messages instead. I guess that's settled. I don't want her back, and she's in a relationship, so she doesn't want me back either. We chatted a bit about how our families are doing. She congratulated me on finally finishing university. She asked if I'd been seeing anyone, and when I told her I'd been studying hard and working a lot since exams, retail job with no time for girls, she laughed and said I'm still a big nerd. She hoped we could be friendly if we ever see each other, but she wants to keep out of contact out of respect for her relationship with Tim. She wants to give it a real chance of working, which is fair enough. She gave me a hug, said thank you for understanding, and left. So, there you have it. Ellie involved me in her relationship drama. I would have preferred she hadn't, but at least it's sorted now. I'm glad I paid attention to my feelings and took time to consider things, as it could have been very messy if I had taken her back. Trusting my gut has been the biggest lesson for me in all this. I still care for her despite recent events. It seems like she is dealing with a lot of complicated things between her new relationship and work gossip. I wish her well and hope she will be happy, whether it's with Tim or not. She was my first love, and I expect I'll always have warm memories of her, but I am clear now that I don't want her back. She is my past, and I want to look forward. Well, this has become quite lengthy. My tutors at university always told me I was too waffly in my writing. Well, forget those guys. I'm not a student anymore. I can now focus on launching my new career with no distractions. I've worked so hard for so long to get here. My new job starts on Monday, and it's going to be so great building actual real experience in my new profession, not just endless theory. I'll be earning much better money, no more student poverty, and I've got graduation in May to look forward to as well. I'm open to finding someone new, but that is way down my priority list. I'm not going to actively pursue that anytime soon. Regarding Ellie changing, I came to terms with our relationship months ago. When she came back to me, it stirred up some old feelings because we had been a couple for so long. But thinking about it now, that was more of an echo of those memories than real feelings. All of this drama was Ellie's doing. I would have preferred she never involved me, so I could have been blissfully ignorant of her romantic life. I'd prefer not to know about her worldly, rich boyfriend or their sex life. She's definitely changed. The Ellie I remember was scrupulous and honest to a fault. The Ellie I have dealt with recently wasn't like that so much. I think that's why her lying to me upset me so much. It wasn't just lying, it was how out of character it seemed. But people change. She's in the business world now, and people there live by different standards than the religious family she grew up in. Anyway, I have cut myself out of her life, so anything that happens with her is hers to deal with. If she comes back to me, I'll remind her we agreed to stay apart and leave it there. I am not looking for another relationship right now, so no Tinder for me, and no, I am not looking for casual sex either. I'm a virgin, but I want a meaningful connection, not just sex. As I said in the post, I'm open to something if the right woman came along, but I'm not actively seeking it. That might change after a while, but right now, I want to keep focused on my new career. On having closure, a lot of the comments here act like that final meeting was all for her benefit. Sure, she got some kind of relief or closure out of it, but it was also good for me. Seeing who she is becoming just made it 100% clear in my mind that we wouldn't ever make sense. She has changed a lot in the last year, starting when we were still together and she had started her job. Random phrases like work hard, play hard, and being generally less kind and more dismissive of others clearly indicate she was being influenced by those around her, but it was her choice to take on those behaviors. I love the old Ellie, but I'm not sure I even like the current one much. Anyway, I didn't feel like she intruded. I felt like I got a nice, neat ending to the whole thing and can get on with my life with a clear conscience. We're clear now that it's over forever, and I have her promise that she will stay out of contact. If she ever does try to come back, I can remind her of her own promise and close the door. Update. If you recall from my previous posts, my ex Ellie and I mutually agreed to have no contact after some drama on her part. At the urging of Redditors, I also blocked her to help maintain that no contact. I've been working since February as a graduate engineer, and it's been everything I hoped it would be. I'm meeting amazing, smart people, learning so much every day, and I'm finally earning a salary after years of being a broke student. Having a little money in the bank and being able to afford to do things like eating out is such a nice change. When I finished university in November, I moved in with my brother temporarily. He had just broken up with his ex and needed help with his rent. That's where I was living when Ellie last came to see me. He found a new housemate, and since his place was on the wrong side of the CBD for my job, I moved into a shared house in the southeast of Melbourne. The place is a bit rundown, but the rent is reasonable by insane Melbourne standards, and there are lots of pubs, bars, and restaurants nearby. The location and my housemates have been great. I'm seeing someone I'll call Olivia, not her real name. She's the sister of one of my housemates. We met when my housemates and I had a barbecue, and she dropped by. We got talking and were still talking hours later until everyone else had left. Her brother told us to be quiet so he could get some sleep. Asked her out that week, and we've been close since. My housemate, SW, her brother, has been making fun of us ever since, including more than a few crude jokes when she stays over. We agreed to be exclusive 6 weeks ago, so it's still quite new. She's so cool, smart, and gorgeous. The chemistry was instant and intense from the moment we met. We just clicked so well. It's such a great time when we're together. Olivia is an accountant at a big firm. One of her workmates was having a party last month, and she asked me to come to meet some of her work friends. We went inside, and Olivia introduced me to the woman who hosted the party, her workmate Jess. There were maybe 40 to 50 people there, and I didn't know anyone but Olivia. At one point, I offered to grab more drinks. The kitchen was in a separate room, and as I was getting them, a guy asked me to pass him a beer from the fridge. I introduced myself, and he said, "Hi, I'm Tim." We chatted for a couple of minutes about our jobs and how we know Jess. Then I just said nice to meet you and returned to the group. I didn't recognize his face as I'd never met him before, but it was definitely Ellie's Tim. His job and firm lined up, and he looked to be in his 30s, a bit older than most people at the party. Neither of us mentioned Ellie when we were talking. Later on, I asked Jess how she knew Tim. She said she used to work at the same firm as Tim, where Ellie works, but she moved to another employer where Olivia works. Despite living in a city of 5 million, it's still a small world. On the tram ride home, I must have been quiet because Olivia asked what was on my mind. I said that the Tim guy at the party was, or maybe still is, my ex's boyfriend. I said I didn't think he knew who I was, or if he did, he didn't say anything. That prompted me to share some history about me and Ellie. Olivia was wide-eyed and said, "You never told me you were a virgin." Then she laughed and said, "Well, we took care of that." She asked if I had any feelings for Ellie, and I truthfully said no. I dealt with all that months ago. More recently, there was a formal charity dinner that Olivia was asked to support. Her employer was a sponsor of the event. She was keen to show me off. We were at a table with a bunch of her work colleagues, nice people. One of her work friends was so excited to meet me and said, "Olivia can't stop talking about you." That made me feel really good. After dinner, a few of us were chatting when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and, to my surprise, it was Ellie. Tim was with her. It was so weird to see her again. Tim said he remembered meeting me at that party, but never made the connection to Ellie until just now. She must have told him about me. Ellie looked very different. She had lost a lot of weight and was very slim. The tight red dress she was wearing made that obvious. Her dad would not approve. Not that she was ever overweight, but I'd never seen her that thin before. She was immaculately made up with what looked, to my ignorant eye, like expensive jewelry. She changed her hair too. Now it was blonde instead of her natural auburn. She looked like a sleek, rich girl. Not the poor pastor's daughter I remembered. Don't get me wrong. She looked amazing, but she looked like a different person. I know it was a formal event, so we were all dressed nicely, but this was a major transformation. Despite her glam looks, when I saw her, I didn't feel anything, just nothing. Ellie said she was so glad to see me and had some news, holding out her hand to show a diamond engagement ring. I know nothing about diamonds, but it looked pretty big and expensive to me. I offer my congratulations to them both. Just then, Olivia walked back over. I introduced her to Ellie and Tim. Olivia put her arm around me, and Ellie's smile seemed to kind of freeze. I didn't really know what else to say, so I just said nice to see you again and wished them all the best for the wedding. Tim walked off, and Ellie just sort of stood there for a moment. It was awkward. Later on, as we were leaving, Ellie was staring at us as we walked out. Olivia said later, "I think she still has a thing for you." I said it doesn't matter anyway. Cut to a few days ago. My brother messaged me saying Ellie stopped by looking for me. Yes, Reddit, you were right. He knew to not share my new address with her, so all he said was I'd moved out. The next day, I received an email from an address I hadn't seen before. It was Ellie. There was no acknowledgement that she was breaking our agreement to be no contact. No mention she stopped by my old place. It said it was so great to see me again. She'd missed me, and that girl I was with is pretty. How serious is it? She told me she and Tim have big plans for their wedding next year and hopes I can come. I was annoyed because she was trying to make her life my business again, despite promising no contact, even going to the trouble to make a new email address to get around me blocking her. I showed Olivia the email, and she rolled her eyes, asking me to think about why my ex would send me that. Why indeed? Olivia is great at cutting through the noise and reads people way better than I do. Ellie can't have me back. I'm in a relationship now, plus she's engaged, and it's not like I would go to their wedding. Who goes to their ex's wedding? It wouldn't be right. I don't know why she's trying to contact me, but I can guess that she wants to use me for emotional support again, or maybe things are rocky with Tim. Who knows? Whatever she wants, it's not happening. She has family and friends. She can talk to them. I deleted the email and blocked the address without replying. Ellie promised she'd keep out of contact and just couldn't help herself. I still intend to keep my word of no contact, even if she doesn't. I've also set up a filter to send any email containing her name to the bin. Olivia and I had a talk after that. I asked if she was concerned about the Ellie thing, but she said no. She's not worried. She didn't get any bad vibes from Ellie. I'm glad none of this has put her off me. So, nothing too dramatic, but it does prove you guys were right. Ellie could not contact me, despite promising to do so. I was able to sidestep her much more easily than last time. Ultimately, this is a good news story. Life is so great right now. Now I've got a cool new girlfriend, a fun place to live, and a new career. I love it. It has been easy to leave Ellie behind.